Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So to introduce myself again, I'm Costa Officer Grade 5 Xin Hui, and today I'll be giving a lecture on program planning and execution. Okay. So it's important to be clear on the module objectives because that's what this whole lecture is for, and you'll be tested on the knowledge on them. So firstly, you should be able to understand the importance of proper planning and execution, describe the components of planning for an event, be able to draft a simplified risk and hazard assessment, be able to draft an event proposal, and lastly, apply the knowledge and skills learned in a core context. So moving on to the importance of planning. Program planning is about considering various factors and putting in place different steps to achieve objectives. It helps to increase efficiency and effectiveness, facilitate proper coordination and control, facilitate decision making, aids in organizing, and encourages creativity and innovation. So now that I'm done talking about the importance of planning, I will now move on to the components of planning. So the components of planning are as such. Before the event, we'll talk about objectives, forming a committee, coming out of the proposal, having a work plan, budgeting, venue, risk management, and action plans. During the event is simply the execution, and after the event, there'll be an after action review. So now I'll give you about 10 seconds to look at the components that I will dive into later on. Okay. So first, I'll be talking about the objectives. So it's important to provide clear directions when planning and to set benchmarks and targets to aim for. Hence, it's important that they are smart. So what exactly is smart? Objectives have to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. So you can now take a read. I'll further elaborate these later on. Okay, so first I'll be talking about specific, the first point of SMART. So ask yourself if the objective proposed is precise and well-defined, whether it is clear, concise, and easily understood. A simple example would be as such. So this shows you a negative example and also a positive example of how specific your objective should be. Yeah. Moving on to measurable. How will you or your participants know whether the objective is achieved? In this example, if you only state that the learners will understand how to plan an activity, you will not be able to judge whether the participant actually learned how to plan an activity. By explicitly stating that you want the learners to be able to describe the components of planning, there is a way you can measure whether your objective have actually been met. So thirdly, moving on to achievable. Is it within the capabilities of your participants to meet this objective? Will they be able to access the required resources to ensure that this objective can happen? So this is the example for achievable. So relevance. Does the objective align with the overall goal, or is it like random? So you can read the following example to see how you can make your objective more relevant to the rest. Lastly, is your objective timely? What is the deadline you're setting for, and is it visible? Looking at the given example, instead of vaguely saying that the participants will learn how to dress a wound, it will be more accurate and useful to state that they will learn how to dress a wound by the second week of the workshop. Okay, any questions at this point of time? You can just like nod your head or shake your head. Or you can just ask in the chat if you have any questions so far. Okay. So now that I'm done with talking about how we set our objectives, I'll now move on to forming a committee. We form a committee because it increases efficiency and the manpower is divided into smaller branches with teams in charge of specific tasks. So admin, logs, safety, and operations are the common committees that will be formed. However, if the program you're planning for is a small-scale program such as a practical first aid lesson, like all courses usually do, you can combine some committees together because there are less details that needs to be taken care of. So for example, the people in charge of admin can also oversee safety. So the following slides will be the job scope of each committee. So do take a read as I flash each slide. So for administration, so whoever's copying, are you done copying? So Raiko from Kanji, done copying? Okay, so now I'll move on. So moving on to logistics. Safety. So I'll further elaborate on what a risk and hazard assessment is later on in my lecture. So is everyone okay if I move on? Can? Okay. Operations. So now that I'm done with briefly introducing the committee, I'll be talking about moving on to the work plan. A work plan clearly marks out the various deadlines and responsibilities during the planning phase. It is helpful in delegating and detailing out necessary tasks. So it should be able to show various readers various tasks at hand, inform who must carry them out, and by when should the task be completed by. So the following table is an example of a work plan. It is quite straightforward, so you all can just take a look at it. So as you can see, it's quite clear that at one glance, right, the deadlines for each committee is shown. So it tells each committee when must they complete the task by. So this is like a way to like keep track of the progress of organizing this event. Is it too fast again? So now I'll move on to budgeting. So a budget plan allows you to determine in advance whether you have enough money or not for your event. Here's an example of a budget plan. It is very useful in helping you visualize the specific items required for each purpose and whether the same item can be reused for another activity so that you can cut costs. So for example, if you know that you need ground sheets for 2 different activities that will occur on the same day at different timings, you can coordinate among yourself and reuse the ground sheets instead of buying or getting another set. So in this way, you can cut costs and be more efficient. Anyone needs more time looking at the example of a budget plan? The columns? Okay, so if you take a closer look at the budget plan, right? There are like, okay, so the first column will be the types of things that you have to include. So there's like programs. Can you get my cursor? So I have programs, welfare, and miscellaneous. So under programs, it can be like your general item, like what I said, example, ground sheets for like a certain activities. So there'll be a description on what activity it is in particular and the detailed breakdown. So actually it can be more detailed than this. So like each column should only contain like one item and the quantity you need. Then you will talk about how much you need if you have to buy it. Yeah. And moving on to welfare, this can be like stuff that, for instance, like as shown, food, drinks, snacks, things that are not used for the activities. And lastly, like miscellaneous, because as you know, every camp will have your own camp t-shirt, your core or like your zone tees. So now I'll be moving on to venue. So like budgeting venue is very straightforward. So factors to consider when selecting a venue will include the location's availability and permissions, whether it allows your program to take place and whether contingency plans can take place. So now we'll take some time to recap on whatever I went through before. So is Jiala from Crunchy around? Are you here? You like unmute yourself. Okay. So I'll be asking you the first question. So what does SMART stand for?
S stands for specific.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, correct. Can slowly take your time.
M stands for measurable.
Yeah.
A stands for achievable. R relevant, and T timely.
Yeah, that's correct. Everyone got that right? Okay. Thank you, Jiala. So now I'll be asking the second question. Shi Qi from Nanyang Girls, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so second question is a work plan used for planning or execution?
The work plan is used for the planning phase.
Yeah, so okay, correct. That's the answer. Thank you. And lastly, Sean from Hwa Chong, are you there? Sean from Hwa Chong. Okay. Then you can type on the chat, right? Okay, so can you list out 3 components of planning that you have learned so far? So Sean, are you typing out the answer now? Okay, yeah. Okay. Can I get Riley from Crunchy to answer the question too?
Yes, the first one, budget. Then after that, the venue and like the action plans.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Riley. Okay. So that is correct. As for Sean, the things that you have described are like what came from SMART, which is the first part of planning before the event. So it's under objectives over here, the SMART goals. Yeah. So what Riley has mentioned will be the actual components of planning that we have learned so far. Yeah, everyone got that? If you all are still unclear, you all can just like pop a question in the chat. Then you can help me check whether they got asked. Can? Okay. Now we'll move on to risk management. So this can be quite heavy, so you can also raise questions at any point of time, or like if I'm again going too fast. So risk management ensures availability of safety personnel, assesses risk involved in key stakeholders, and includes contingency plans should certain situations occur. So contingency plans are plan Bs in the event emergency situations occur. A different set of instructions should be ready since emergency situations allow little time for decision making. So a wet weather plan is a subset of contingency plans. In the case where outdoor activities have to be ceased due to poor weather conditions, an alternative plan can be executed. Security response plan involves the detailed procedure of how to respond to cases of emergency which will endanger the safety of the people present. For instance, in the case where a cadet gets into an accident and requires medical coverage, a treatment or evacuation plan should be prepared and executed on the spot. So this slide explains what a risk and hazard assessment is, so you can take a read. So the following examples of what are possible risks. So there are like environmental factors or like nature of activities. So you can continue reading. So everyone okay, right? Okay, so now I'll go through how a risk and hazard assessment table is actually done. So actually it looks very complicated, right? So at your level, you don't actually have to do such a detailed RAMS. So usually, typically we call this a RAMS table. Okay, so risk assessment and management. So first we'll look at, first list out the activities and identify the possible hazards associated with it. So second, you evaluate the risk level. Afterwards, you have to fill in the remaining details, how the possible risks will be managed, and the personnel involved. So you take a look at the example. I know most of you probably don't understand like this part, like how do we come up with the numbers and stuff. So I'll elaborate on it later on. But essentially, when you come up with a RAMS table, you include the activity that you are conducting and what are the possible hazards. Yeah. And then afterwards, you think of how can the trainees injure themselves, and like what are you going to like do in the case where they actually injure themselves. So this is an example. This is an example of matrix used to calculate the risk level of possible hazard identified. So first, you rate the likelihood and the severity according to the description. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4. And to come out with the risk level, you multiply the two numbers, and then you get a number. This table isn't so accurate, but typically, if you are typically at your level, you really don't need to use this matrix. But in the case where you move on, like let's say in high school or whatsoever, where you need to use a table, your schools or the organization will probably provide you with such a matrix that you have to follow. So this table, I'm showing you this table so that you have a better understanding. So you don't actually have to take down anything. Okay, so now I'll be breaking everyone into your individual groups. So all you have to do is discuss the possible activities included in the event you're assigned to. So everyone knows your groupings, right? Yeah. Sabrina, do you know your grouping? Where is Sabrina?
No.
You are in group 4. So we added you into the group. So later we'll just break you into the group. And then maybe you can introduce yourself to your remaining group members, because just now we did some icebreaker. Yep. Is that okay? Yep.
Yes.
So now you look at the topic that your group will be taking. So I want you to list out think about the possible activities that can include in the event. So for instance, games day, what are the types of activities that you can conduct for a games day, and what kind of hazards that might occur? What accidents will arrive due to the hazard, and how can the risk be controlled or managed? So one representative from each group will then unmute himself or herself and present the things that you have discussed. So you all can discuss among yourself who will be the one presenting. So later we will not I don't have to point like someone out from the group just to present. So okay. So I'll be leaving this slide on as well as this. Cheryl, can you see both pages, or you can only see the slide? Okay, hold on for a second. So Chenron sir will be breaking you guys into the group. Yeah. They are in the group.
I should have sent them to the breakout area. Sure. I'm not sure how it works. Is it sent here?
Wait, they can hear.
Funny bro, send the
Enzo, do you have problems joining the breakout room? Hi Enzo, are you there? join. Okay.
So hi everyone, welcome back. So can the representative from group 1 tell me about your RAMs? So who's representing group 1? They will not give a so you can just like who's representing group 1 and can you hear me? No, my internet connection is unstable.
Oh, yeah, internet connection is unstable.
Did anyone reply? No, right? Okay, if no one from group 1, if you all didn't decide on the representative, then I'll just randomly pick someone out from group 1. Who's from group 1?
Okay, my name is Jeremiah Law from Kranji Secondary School. I'm the representative of Group 1.
Hi, Jeremiah. Yeah, you
Okay,
can continue.
so some of the things we discussed is that one of the risks is that heat stroke because it's gonna be a hot day and some of them don't drink up.
Okay, so for like what kind of activity? So for group 1,
Or
we're doing games day, right?
yeah, game safe. For example, football.
Football.
Mm.
So the hazard will be the hot weather
Yeah,
or
hot weather. And a heat stroke.
Yeah.
Or heat exhaustion or whatever. So the prevention measures is to advise them to drink up and stay hydrated often. Yeah, but that's all that we can do.
anything else you want to add on?
Or we could just put in breaks within to allow them to like drink up also.
Okay. Breaks in between. Okay.
The second one is fractures or sprains.
Just on screen.
Due to like rough activity doing like a game like basketball. Due to like a rough nature of what they're doing, actually.
So what's your risk control measure?
The only thing we can do is kind of like tell them to not be so rough, but that's all we can do.
So, but if it actually happens, then what will you do?
I think we'll just try to immobilize. If it's a sprain, then we'll try to do the RICE thing, which is basically if it's a fracture, we'll just immobilize the fracture and call an ambulance.
So basically utilizing your first aid skills or
Yeah.
whatever that will happen. Okay.
Yeah, at least make sure that there's at least one first aider there who knows their stuff.
So you're ensuring that at least one personnel who knows first aid will be there to treat whoever is injured.
Yes,
Okay.
that's true.
Okay, thank you, Jeremiah. So
Okay.
thank you. So can a representative from group 2 So who's the representative from group 2?
Hello, my name is Sian from Group 2 from Kranji Sec. I'll be
Hi.
presenting. Yep. For morning safe games day, we also mostly have the similar idea to Group 1. We thought of captain's ball. The injuries will be similar to Group 1, like dehydration, abrasion, or any heat-related injuries. Because they'll be playing in the hot sun, and then if they never drink enough water, they'll be dehydrated. And the abrasion is like when you fall down or crash to somebody, then So the risk can be controlled by having like us like St. John first aid personnel to patrol like public duty. Then we also can maybe set up a first aid post somewhere in the shelter, so if anybody is injured, we can like help them, assist them. Yup.
To have first aiders on site.
Yeah, patrolling,
Okay, anything you want to add on?
Nope.
So I think it's quite straightforward for games day. Okay, thank you for sharing, Zixian. So now can we move on to group 3?
Hi, I'm Yi Hong, representing Group 3.
Hi, Hong.
So for the CCA open house, we may do some showcasing stretcher drills.
Yep.
The hazards may be like the handling of like the equipment, the stretcher. They might accidentally hurt themselves if like they don't handle the stretcher well.
Yeah. What kind of injury might occur? Like possible accident.
They may cut themselves with like the metal parts of like the stretcher.
Yeah. Okay. So what will your risk control be?
We will give like clearer instructions and will supervise better to ensure that it doesn't happen.
Then if it happens,
If it happens, we'll have some first aiders on standby to treat them.
okay.
And also we will showcase like foot drill.
Anything else you want to
The since you like showcase on like the at like the parade square or like courtyard, they might fall down cause of like maybe they might fall down and have like abrasions or sprains cause like the floors like rough. We'll have first aiders on standby also, and yeah.
essentially it's similar, right? Because they're all injury related.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing, Yi Hong. So can a representative from Group 4 continue sharing like what your group has discussed?
Hi, I'm Yihan. I'm from Group 4.
Hello.
Our group has discussed about the tying of bandage.
Tying a bandage. Yep. Carry on.
So what will happen is some of the students may not know how to tie the bandage properly, and they may tie too tight lah, so it may injure the person's arm.
Okay. So improper technique.
Yes, improper technique.
Okay.
So there may be abrasions as the cloth would. If the bandage is too tight, the cloth will rub against the skin.
So how will you prevent that from happening? Or if it happens, then what will you do?
We will try to like brief the people. We will try to brief the students coming to the open house to like add padding, or like demonstrate how to like tie the bandage properly, so that it will not be too tight or too loose.
Okay. So if it happens, then also first aiders or what?
If it really happens, then I think there should be first aiders on site to help the injured person.
Okay. Anything else you want to add on?
No.
Okay, thank you, Lihan. Can the representative from Group 5 continue sharing?
Hi, I'm GJ from Marshall.
Hello.
So what we essentially discussed is for the parade segment during
Yeah.
St. John's Day. We were discussing about because there may be rain before the parade segment, so the floor is slippery, and so added with the boots not having enough traction, there will be falls trips. So and bruises. So the preventive measures would be to remind them to be careful while the parade is ongoing, and also
ask the safety section to really keep a lookout and active lookout for anybody who falls or trips during that time period.
Okay, any other possible hazard?
We are also thinking about heat stroke due to a heat exhaustion due to the heat while having the parade. So yeah, and so what we are trying to have to do is to hydrate themselves before the parade, and also to ask the first aiders to be on site and keep a lookout.
Thank you, Zhe Jie. So can the representative of the last group present whatever you guys have discussed?
I'm Tia Kai from Group 6.
Hello.
I think in St. John Day there will be the parade, and then the St. John cadets will be wearing full St. John uniform.
Yep.
And the hazards will be like heat exhaustion. And you can give the St. John cadets isotonic drinks in advance, and like remind them to drink water regularly.
Okay. I got that. Hydration regime. Okay. Anything else you want to add on?
No.
Okay. Thank you for your sharing. Okay, so you all can now take a look at this and then like make notes or whatsoever if you all want. Look, I see other groups. Yeah. Okay, so anyone else need more time? No? No? Can shake your head or not your head? Alright. Okay. Um, Can I see? Okay, so now that I'm done sharing about risk management, I'll move on to action plans. So action plans detail out the specific actions that have to be taken by different stakeholders during the execution phase, and it ensures that all members are clear of their responsibilities. So this is an example of an action plan. It should be as detailed and as clear as possible, and whoever receives it should immediately understand what they have to do at each timing during execution. So for example, if I'm an NCO, when I look at the action plan, I should immediately know that I have to collect valuables at 8 a.m. So the difference between the action plan and the work plan that I have previously mentioned is that the work plan is used as a timeline for the planning phases, so that individual committees know what they have to do, like the deadlines that they have to complete their task by. But for the action plan, like what the name suggests, is for execution phase. So on the ground, if you're holding onto the action plan, you are very clear on what everyone is supposed to do at every point of time and the things you have to prepare for beforehand. So last component of planning before an event will be the writing of the proposal. A proposal writing is used to propose and seek approval for the activity. It helps to justify and outline the information of your program. So take a read. These are the things you should include in the proposal. So most of the things to include in your proposal were the components of planning I previously introduced to you. So the other things that I did not previously mention are like the small things like the title, date, time, and venues, outline of program and such. Okay, no one else is copying, right? Someone is copying. You can moving. Yeah, okay. So now I'll be talking about the execution of a program. During the execution, a pre-activity brief is necessary to ensure that the flow of activities is according to plan and that stakeholders are aware of what they need to do. So you all don't need to copy this word forward. And like what Daryl sir said, it will be uploaded on your Google Classroom. Yeah. You have to take down the main points and like the examples that I provide. So this brings us back to the action plans. If your action plan is detailed and clear enough, it will sufficiently aid your execution phase as everyone will understand what they have to do for each activity without confusion. So this is the last part of my lecture. So an after action review is a meeting conducted to look back at the entire process of planning and execution. It allows us to identify what went well and what can be improved on in future. It allows each department to share their views and concerns about the entire program. So a review is important because it provides us with a learning process and acts as an archive for future planning teams to reference from. So if you want to plan for an activity, right, your seniors, you can probably ask your seniors for like your proposals they previously planned for, and you can reference from it. So it's in a way less tedious because you have a guideline on how you should do your proposal. So it'll be much easier for you and your team. The following questions can be considered prior to an AAR to facilitate discussion. So now to conclude, the key to planning is taking consistent action. A good planning committee is one that is able to orchestrate an event while taking into account all the different factors and aspects presented. To summarize, these are the key learning points. Take a minute or so to read through and consolidate your learning. So like what I said just now, you don't have to actually copy it down, just read through, and if there's anything that doesn't make sense to you or you want to clarify, you can ask us, me. Also can. Okay. Hold on, so now I'll be sending you a survey link, and then I'll be going back to the summary, and then after you all try to answer the questions accordingly. Chat. I like to whisper. It's so annoying. So now I'll be giving you about 5 minutes to complete the survey. And let me know if there's any issues with the survey.
Guys, so please go and do the survey. Is your attendance. We are overrunning quite a bit. I think it's my fault because I dragged the opening brief too long and the icebreakers a bit too long. So I would think that we will end today about 5:15, 5:30. I will work on my time management next week. I promise. In the meantime, if you have any plans, I'm okay if you leave at 5. But I don't want to discount Cheng Rong of any of his time for his lecture lah. So what will happen is the recording will be there. If you need to leave at 5, you can leave at 5. That's fine. All I ask for is that you watch the recording and you do the survey in 3 days. So sorry, within 3 days of tomorrow, which is by Wednesday, and I'll count it as a lecture attendance. But if you can stay, please stay. Yeah. So once again, I'm sorry, it was my fault. I acknowledge that.
I go see the response for the survey. Like I don't want to leave the page. If I leave the page, oh, I can leave the page. Can see ah?
Oh no, that one cannot see that.
Oh, no. No, the app not even open. But I don't know why the message keep popping up. 我跟你讲，我是电脑白痴。
Yeah, I understand that some of you have gone through similar modules in your core, especially those on Hua Zhong. So help me out. Let me in the feedback in the quiz. Under the, do you have any feedback for the lecture delivery? Can just input like, is it excessive? Were there more things that were covered in your course that was not covered in our course and things like that? And basically just help us improve this lah. And if any other course have similar courses that your core conducts for you to prepare you as NCOs, also include the feedback. In your feedback also include whether Xinghui was too fast, too slow, browse through things too quickly. Yeah, so that we can clarify on the spot.
Hi, okay, so thanks for the feedback. Someone requested for a proposal. We will look around. I will look at our own archive. We will look at our own archives. A lot of our proposals are basically things that you will be inheriting, lah, right? So if I give you my version of proposals, it will be proposals that you, Hwa Chong, the Hwa Chong cadets here, you will probably see the same thing, lah, because every year we just save as the document, change the name, and then we use the template, right? So your core camp template, what I have and what you have should be the same. I think same thing for Xing Hui and Cheng Rong from Choa Chu Kang. Tony is from Hwa Chong also. It's the same thing. I will go and look at my own archives. I have some things from JC that I wrote for myself, but I need to go and clean it up and see whether it's in alignment with whatever is taught here. Because whatever was conceived here was done by me after I graduated from JC. Yeah. So okay, we will go and look at it and try to send it to you ASAP. But in the meantime, you can use this skeleton PowerPoint to work on your coursework. I think it's a good enough starting point. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. So like along so along with like the proposal, the example of a sample of proposal he was saying, I'll also be sending back like pointers that I have for the survey, like your answers and stuff. Yeah, because now we have to move on with the course. So I'll hand my time over to Chen Rong sir. But now we'll be taking a 15 minutes break. Then you want to facilitate that.
Okay. So we're gonna take a break, quick one, so that we don't delay everyone's dismissal time. So now 16:23, 16:30 we come back. No activity. I trust that you will go and take a physical break. Like I said, don't stare at the screen. Go and do some push-ups, do some sit-ups. Yeah, okay. Go and do some jumping jacks, stretch yourself, do some PT. Okay, good. See you back at 16:30.